All right, in today's video tutorial, you may have learned how to multiply and divide fractions before, but in the meantime, we learned this thing called the distributive property. So I wanted to show us how to use the distributive property to make fraction work like these a little bit easier to deal with. So what I would ask of you guys is please follow these directions, and in the exercises that I assign, do the work the same way, showing all the steps. Now, the goal here is that eventually you'll be able to do all of this work in your head. That's where I want you to end up. But in your head, you should be doing certain things that are algebraic and structural in nature. So I'm going to have you write it down first, and then hopefully by the end of the year, you'll be able to do calculations like 24 times 2 2/3 in your head. So anyway, the first step is to recognize that all mixed numbers are really the sum of whole numbers and partial numbers, or fractions. So we make 2 2/3 into 2 plus 2/3, and then you can see we can use the distributive property. I'm going to multiply 24 times 2, and I'm going to multiply 24 times 2/3. So there I've just distributed the 24. 2 24s is easy, that's 48. But as for what I do with 2/3 of 24, instead of multiplying 24 by 2 and then dividing by 3, I choose to divide 3 into 24 8 times, and I'll multiply 8 times 2, which makes the 16 right here. And that makes 64. Once again, if I was doing this in my head, I would say 2 24s is 48, and 2/3 of 24 is 16, and I could add 16 and 48 in my head. So prepare for that mental or math. Let's show us what's actually happening in the head. All right, now, go down over here. We still have the same thing. 8 and 5/6 is a sum of 8 and 5/6. So I'm going to distribute the 3/4. Notice I do the distribution without doing any calculations. Like, I know 3/4 of 8 is 6, but I'm going to show the steps so that I can show whoever's reading my work that I understand what I'm doing next. So here I'm going to start with reducing this fraction. 3 and 6 divides out to 1/2. So I turn the 3 into a 1 and the 6 into a 2. Same way over here, 4 goes into 8 twice, so I cross out the 4, it becomes a 1, and the 8 becomes a 2. Now I can just do 3 times 2 for 6, and then over here I have 1 times 5, and 4 times 2 for 8. So that's 6 and 5/8, which is the final result. Both of these should be checked using a calculator or Desmos. Once again, on Desmos, I would literally type in exactly what I see here, and then also, in the next line, I would type in 6 and 5/8, and I would verify that those two numbers are in fact the same. Next is dividing fractions. These are called compound fractions. It's a fraction divided by a fraction within a fraction. And so here's what you're going to do. You're going to do a very weird-looking thing at first, but you realize it's going to save us a lot of trouble in the long run. So we're going to use the distributive property. We're going to definitely make each mixed numbered fraction into the whole number plus the fraction part. Then what you're going to do is you're going to look at the denominators. Here's the denominator of 4, and here's the denominator of 3. We're going to do what's called least common multiple. You don't have to write this notation down here. I'm just reminding you that this is really what we're doing, is finding out what number does 4 go into, that 3 also goes into, and is the least number that both of those go into. In this case, it's 12, because 4 goes into 12 and 3 goes into 12. That is the smallest multiple that they have in common. That is what I'm going to call the magic number. In this case, the magic number is 12. I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 12. Please note, multiplying top and bottom by 12 is really multiplying by 12 over 12. 12 divided by 12 is 1. So I'm not changing the value of this fraction. I'm just changing the way it looks. So I distribute the 12. 12 times 5 is 60, and 12 times a quarter. How did I get 3 out of that? Well, I did 4 goes into 12 3 times, and then I just brought the numerator down, and now I'll multiply 1 times 3. You can see that down here. 12 times 1 is 12. And then I brought down the numerator, and I did 3 divided into 12, gives me 4. I chose 12 because I know 4 and 3 will go into it, so I'm not going to have any problems having extra fractions. You'll see all the fractions went away in this division problem. The rest is just straight arithmetic. One last example then. I look at the common denominators here, and in this case, 3 over 1, the denominator is 1, and in this case, 3 over 5, the denominator is 5. So the lowest common multiple between 1 and 5 is, in fact, 5. Multiply top and bottom by 5. 3 times 5, 15. Distributive property in the numerator, 4 5s is 20. Here I'm going to bring down the 3, and the 5s divide out to 1, so 3 times 1. This gives us 15 over 23, which is the final result. Hope you found this helpful. Do your work in the same way. Thank you.